City Council Committee on Administration and Finance, co-posted the Committee of the Whole, met in Council Chamber on Monday, August 20th, 2018 at 6 p.m. for the purpose of discussing the matters listed below. Notice this meeting was posted on August 16th, 2018 at 4:12 p.m. This meeting is being recorded. Currently absent from the committee is Councilor Dibble. I do expect him to be here. Also present with us right now from the Committee of the Whole are Councilor Milo and Councilor Dominguez, and Councilor McCarthy somewhere here in the room, and wisely I think he's avoiding us at the moment. We have two matters before us tonight. Council Order 524, ordered the sum of $627,386 is appropriated from the Stabilization Fund to Capital Improvement Fund 3813 Community Life Center. And Order 525, ordered the sum of $70,000 is appropriated within the Salem sale of property account. There's a typo there, to be expended for upgrades to the Mayor Jean Levesque Community Life Center. We have here on behalf of the city, we have our Director of, I don't even know the exact title, but Director of Services for Seniors, Teresa Arnold, and our, again, whatever Mike's description is at the moment, Councilor Dibble has arrived, let the record reflect that. Mike Lutrikowski is here from Public Property, and we expect Mayor Driscoll to be here in the next few minutes. So I guess if I could ask for starters, if Teresa and Mike, if you guys could come up to just sort of talk us through this and how, what the changes were, how we got to, and also how, honestly, the biggest issue I think in a sense is that it didn't come through in the budget, which we had just recently passed, and and it's kind of last minute. So if you guys could come up where we have the mic and kind of guide us through all this. I know, Mike, you've been working on this for about the last decade.
Yes.
Teresa's newer to it.
Very new, and I'll defer to Mike here. I'm here to support.
Mike Lutrikowski, Public Properties. I took over this project, I want to say about a year ago, January, and we're at the point today where some of the changes that occurred were either due to maybe items that were omitted early on in the plans, and they were items that were needed within the project. Some were requirements and upgrades that, as we went through the process, benefited both the CLC and the city as a whole. Some of the items, I do not have any paperwork in front of me, but I can walk you through this. A few of the items were smaller in scope, a few others were larger in scope. As far as when it was brought to council, I was not involved specifically in that direction, but a lot of these changes have been going as we're going to be opening the building on the 10th, were items that were just occurring as we were rolling along throughout the process, and there was a time-sensitive nature to it. Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome.
Let's see.
So for starters, if anybody on the committee or any of the councilors have anything they'd like to ask Mike about this for starters, or Teresa about where, Councilor Fury?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, as the Dean of the City Council, I am very excited about this meeting and the possibilities of this meeting to the citizens of Salem. As a baby boomer myself, so it's exciting. I'm looking forward to using it and being part of it. And Jean Levesque served as a city councilor here in this chamber, and then went on to become mayor. So he's looking down. And I think the whole city of Salem is taking a collective sigh of relief in this opportunity. And I hope it goes positive tonight for the city of Salem, because I believe it's high noon for the Jean A. Levesque Community Life Center. Long overdue dream of so many like myself to bring us together as a community. Danvers, Peabody, Swampscott, Beverly, Marblehead have state-of-the-art facilities. And I say, why not us? Long overdue. We need to demonstrate our steadfast support by this additional funding to make this the respect of the North Shore. It will be an economic catalyst to Global Hollow, to the city as a whole, and I'm excited. We can't afford not to do any of these things. Any of these things. This is a call for action now. Long overdue. This center will truly impact, with all these additions, the lives of from young to old We can truly make a difference by showing our support and solidarity tonight for the greatest generation, the baby boomers, to the young, to our deserving veterans, to all of Salem. We must be their collective voices, I believe. We cannot delay or defer this Community Life Center. In the Old Testament, in the Bible, in Ecclesiastes, it states, there is a time for everything under heaven. It's time for this Community Life Center, named after Jean A. Levesque. It's high noon to make it a vibrant reality, and these appropriations will make it a living, breathing reality. It's time. As the late great Aretha Franklin would say, let's give it a little respect by this additional funding to make it truly the respect of the North Shore. It's time not for what it is on Broad Street, but for what it can be on Boston and Bridge Street, the gateway entrance to the city of Salem, on Boston and Bridge, a gateway entrance to the city, a catalyst for a vibrant future, and I'm very excited. I hope the City Council takes advantage of this opportunity to really make a difference. Generations to come, for all age brackets. We're lucky to have both of you work on it. I'm excited in September to the opening, and I hope everything goes positive. So thank you very much.
So just let the record reflect that Councilor Gerard is here with us, and also the mayor has arrived from the school department, so where she was working that one. So I'll ask if you can come up as well to. We just to brief you, Mike just walked us through a little bit of the what has been done, and I know you want to elaborate on this a bunch. So.
Yeah, I appreciate the committee's indulgence to have a special meeting to give us an opportunity to touch base on this. When the CLC was first put together many, many years ago with respect to this public-private partnership where a developer would actually be building us this space, they responded to an RFP and provided a proposal. It had basics in it. It was a very basic box. We knew after that project was moving forward that we were anticipating, I would say, upping the model, sort of like this is the base model. We wanted better finishes. We wanted certainly, it did not include a kitchen build out at that time, things like that. It was more of a plain box. I'll also say it was going to be part of a facility that would have had commercial space above that. With all the delays of that project, we worked with the developer to make it a standalone facility, so it will be set out apart in our own building. But the price never went up, the bottom line base price that was approved and submitted as part of that RFP. The costs that the dollars that we're asking for additional resources are really to support those additional improvements and enhancements we wanted in this building. The bulk of which was driven by a smaller committee that looked at these items, wanted different flooring. There were people who helped us in terms of looking at durability issues. We've had some experiences in the schools with different products, VCT, marmoleum, and wanting to upgrade that. We also had a woman by the name of Elaine Bello, who was an interior designer / space planner who works with senior centers, has done Malden, has done Newburyport, a number of facilities to help us pick out not only some of the finishings that we had to craft in the building, but also the fixtures, the furnishing, things of that like. You'll see other items on here as well that were sort of changes that were in the field, things that as we were building out the space, additional needs would arise, whether it was more outlets to deal with IT issues, because those were things that we were responsible for, the IT proposal, or smaller things. The veterans agent wanted sort of a different layout in his office and a different provisions for how he would be separated from his secretary. So there were costs that came about in the field. This project's a little different for us, to be quite honest, in that normally we're building a project. I think about the school projects being probably the things that I'm most familiar with, where it's our money, we bond for it, there are resources going into it, and there's a contingency to account for things. This was not our money, that's not our contractor, we haven't actually spent $1, but there are enhancements and improvements that we're hoping to make in the center, given the fact that we don't think we'll probably be doing this for a while, given our track record, and wanting to sort of do it right, knowing that these things get done usually once. And that's what is reflected in these finishes, or I should say improvements. I don't think there's anything on this list that I would say is a real, largesse of an expense. We really are trying to make sure we have something that's a first-class facility. And I'd offer a few comparisons. I did do some research to look at some of the most recently created or recently approved So South Hadley, their current center was built in 1924, a former elementary school. They're building an 18,500 square foot senior, sounds familiar, right? Former school, building an 18,500 square foot senior center, slightly smaller than ours. We're at 20,000 square feet, $9.8 million. Walpole, their current center is part of Town Hall. They're moving forward with a new center. I don't have the exact size, but it's $7.4 million. Newburyport, close to ours, they were formerly housed in a Salvation Army. Theirs opened last year, maybe a little bit later than that, $7 million. Greenfield is proposing a 9,800 square foot building, so less than half the size. Not proposing, it's built. It opened in February of this year, $4.2 million, and that's less than half the size of ours. So these building costs, I guess my point is I think we're getting a pretty good bargain for what we're paying for, given the price tag that we'll have all in, with everything included. Ludlow, the last one, they're currently in the basement of a 115-year-old building. They're looking at an 18 to 20,000 square foot facility and just approved a bond for $9.8 million for the new center. Now they have to purchase some land, so that's incorporated into that. Technically we had to purchase land. We have a new center that will be on land that wasn't formerly city-owned. The reason we're in August is because we'd like to close at the end of this month. We've done a lot of logistical planning with the staff to arrange for a temporary when we move for that couple of days period. We have people who eat with us every day. We have people who rely on rides to the cancer center and medical appointments. So it would be really helpful if we close by the end of the year. We can have an organized effort to stop what we're doing down there, start what we're doing here, and have an interim plan to work out of Winter Island for a couple of days as we move things in and move things out and not wanting to have people in the way. The last thing I'll say is, we had always anticipated around $500,000 without the kitchen. This does include a kitchen build out. It's a little bit more expensive, so that was a little bit more expensive than what we were necessarily anticipating. I'd also say that we were anticipating $500,000 to $1 million for the sale of the current senior center, and the appraisals for that have come in at $1.3 million. So we're seeing a lot of upside there as well that should allow us to fully replenish all of these costs as we move forward. And with that, I'll be quiet so you can...
I guess I'll start on the questioning side. I am, having gone through all the upgrades and been here for the vote that we took originally to issue this bond, and I have a couple of colleagues here who've been here for multiple vote after vote after vote. Councilors Fury and McCarthy were here for about, I don't know, I think last night when I was hanging out over at Councilor McCarthy's house for a little while after the Jazz and Soul Festival, we were trying to figure out how many votes that he was in on this, and it was a big number.
St. Joe's, yeah.
So, and Councilor Fury even more than that. Yeah. So, I guess knowing what we're getting for the money, I'm very comfortable with the bottom line number. Because we are getting a good deal for that, and we do have a lot of offsets there. I guess the question in my case, and I think this may be the common theme here, is at the last minute in the middle of August, a couple of weeks before closing, to get hit with all these numbers. That's a process issue. That's where basically my concerns lie entirely with the process, not so much with that bottom line.
Yeah.
I'm very comfortable with the bottom line. I'm just concerned with how we got here on it.
Yeah, I think the preferred process would have been to incorporate this into the budget. It would have been in the CIP at the end of this fiscal year. That's my fault for not including it. We were always anticipating the $500,000. I think maybe we were thinking we were closing in September and we'd come in here, we'd have a settlement cost. We didn't have a firm handle on all of these costs. Some of these things were in the field. We certainly had some estimates for what, things like flooring changes and some of the finishes changes were going to be, but we didn't have it all ironed out, and not wanting to come in until we had everything, not wanting to come in twice, has caused this dance here. So my fault for the mechanics of this, certainly not being the way we typically like to do things. But I don't want folks to think we weren't planning for this. Our expectations were around $500,000 without the kitchen. We were going to fundraise for the kitchen. To be honest, everyone who's built this has said, build out the kitchen, you're going to regret it, don't wait till after. They're mobilized or a crew. I don't think we could get cheaper prices than what they offered to us. And so we said, just do it. There's plenty of things to fundraise for in terms of fixtures and additional niceties, but when the building opens, we'd like it to be open and not have a second phase of construction for something else.
Yeah, I recall that there were discussions that there were going to be other things in it.
Yep.
Back when we first authorized the bond.
Exactly.
I mean, I remember that conversation from now at this point 5 years ago.
And you have approved other things, so there is the FF&E cost, it has been a lot to juggle between both, getting
approved
120
furnishings
moved
and-
over, getting these. 120 was a good run through for organizing the move, organizing all of the bidding and the process for those other items. So it, like I said, the smoother way would have been to include it in the CIP that you approved 2 months ago.
Yep.
My
No,
fault
you-
for not inserting it in there, for sure. But it was anticipated, I guess. I just
And
want
I'll
to make sure
also
that's
give
clear.
Mike props for how he's handled the first move coordination-wise to across the street. So, I'm expecting this part of the move to go fairly smoothly as well. So, any other members of the committee or members of the council have questions? Councilor Gerard?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, not being a member of the committee. Can I just ask a question? I'm doing the math now, and the total on this sheet comes to $732,386, and the total appropriation that you're asking for across both of these orders is $697,386. You're $32,000 short.
I didn't actually total these up. I'm pretty sure we did though. So I don't know if that was some extras that were put in the final change order allowance, so 75 grand may not necessarily have been reflected.
I added this.
Right.
Okay, so I added this whole thing up, and that's how I got the $732,386.
Yeah, I didn't tally this. I'm just
Okay.
sharing with you.
Okay.
So we can check that, but this is what we're requesting. This is the appropriation.
Okay, so
So there's one asterisk on here, final
Yeah.
change orders and allowance of 75 grand.
yeah.
I'll do the math too, just to double check your math.
Yeah, please do.
But that could be the part that's not in here, and that was a reflection of, hey, after we get in and something needs to be moved or changed, that's the one cost item that I would say we don't necessarily have a firm use for. It was just
Okay.
wanting to recognize when you get in, we might need to move an outlet or
Right.
the stuff that happens, the punch list D type items when you move in. But I'll double check that. What's before you are these two orders,
Okay.
which total almost $700,000.
Yes. 697,386.
Yep.
And then I guess the other question is that final change orders allowance, is that 75,000, is that like a typical cushion for a project like this?
I think we were anticipating both the settlement cost on the settlement sheet and just what we might expect going in.
Correct, yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Other questions from members of the Council Dibble?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mayor, thank you for coming here tonight and asking for these to finish the project off. I've publicly thanked you 4 or 5 times now for you being the mayor that got this job done. And like the good at-large councilor said a few minutes ago, I am absolutely, like he is, absolutely in full support of the senior center being built and getting it open, on and on. A couple fast questions. I've bid on over 1,000 projects. And on the other side of the fence, as a municipal employee, I have advertised and opened the bids for a couple hundred projects. So I'm familiar with the bidding process. And I think the good Ward 1 council would agree to this, he's a contractor, that the cost of change orders after the fact always cost more. The contractor goes in to make a bid and they lowball their price. But then after they're doing the work and they have an opportunity to make more money, they're gonna charge you a lot more than they would before the fact.
Yeah.
But sometimes you don't know what changes you might want. So change orders do happen. I'm curious as to like the landscaping at the entryway and the paving and hardscape. Those two combined are $45,000, for example, and I could pick out a bunch of others.
Yeah.
Some of these, and I thought like the $28,000 for the roof infrastructure for future solar panels, I thought that was always part of the bid. I've been discussing that for a long time. I thought it was part of the bid. Well, it's been talked about publicly that we're making the building ready for solar panels.
Right. But it wasn't part of the developer's bid. When they submitted their RFP for a proposal, it was just a base model, so they didn't anticipate putting solar on. We did. We think we can get a grant for the solar, but obviously the roof system needed to be able to support it.
I'm curious, What is the maximum legal amount that we can total in this project for change orders? Are we approaching that?
Yeah, not anywhere near it. So I think one thing to think about is this is not a project that we're managing or that we bid. We put out a bid for an RFP for a new center, and that's what we got. Some of these were not change orders at all. Some of these were expenses that were addition to what the base model offered. So the landscaping was something the design review board said, no, you need to do more, and we want more landscaping. Like, the landscaping looks really nice there. So the developer said, I'm going to give you A, and between the smaller committee and people who are reviewing this, we got A plus B plus C plus D plus E, all of which we think make it a better project, but they were not things the developer had on them to build into this project.
So you're shedding a little bit more light on this. This is an RFP process,
Right.
whereas the developer proposed X, and later, after the fact, after we awarded to them, we wanted X and Y,
You got it.
something like that.
You got it.
Okay, that makes more sense for
Yep.
Otherwise, I think you would agree with me. This is a long list of change orders. Had we designed the project and put it out to bid.
Yep.
So my other questions as to...
And had we would have had it would have been a different process, right? Any of the
Yeah.
schools, it's just a different whole approach. You'd have a contingency, you'd have your fund, you wouldn't design it. You would have been responsible for the design. Remember, they provided it to us, and we layered on top things that we thought were important.
Okay, so my questions about who did the design work, who oversaw the design work, and who clerked the construction, I know Mike is involved in this, all of that goes off the table.
You got it.
This is a whole different bidding process.
Yep.
I do question like $600 for a shelf. I'm gonna look at that shelf when it's up there. It's gotta be one nice shelf. But, yeah,
Medium shelf, baby.
again, if these were requested at the time of the RFP, they would come in at a lot less money. So are we okay with the $700,000 at about 7% of the whole project in terms of increasing the cost of this?
Yeah, I am, because these were things that
No,
we wanted.
legally from a bidding
actually,
standpoint.
Yes,
14%.
absolutely. It's
14%? I don't know, whatever the number
Yep.
is.
Because they're not, it's not as though we bid this and then we added change orders. What they provided, you've got to think about this as a whole separate sort of initiative, which is we wanted upgrades in our base model. They didn't even give us a price for this. This was an RFP process. They owed us a proposal. We wanted nicer finishes. So we're funding those costs.
Yes, but it's still $700,000 worth of costs that
Correct.
basically are not going out to bid.
Well, it was part of a proposal that they gave to us and said, hey, if you want VCT on the floor, don't do anything. We'll keep that. No, we want something different. We caused the upgrade, I guess is where I'm coming from.
No, I understand.
We collectively, as a community, some of these were made with a smaller group of folks who are reviewing these items.
I understand the process. I know how we got here. It's 34 items plus maybe more to come from the 75,000.
I mean, I think those would be, this thing's done. It looks beautiful. I mean, you know, we're just anticipating if there's some small shift or change or things that once you get in, you know, we want to alter something that might be there. So that's the reason for those dollars.
Mike, I wonder how much this 700,000 would have cost us had they been in the design. It clearly would be a lot less. Because
Honestly, I wouldn't say clearly a lot less. Obviously, there would be a monetary difference, but when I look, and I mean, I reviewed all these prices when they came to us, when they proposed them to us. Each of them, to me, nothing is out of line. I mean, some items might be a little bit higher, but I look at things such as like the bathrooms at $22,000, and I look at that, and I mean, I think that's something the city really, we got a giant gain within the building at, to me, very little cost.
I put the handicap bathrooms in the old senior center at 5 Broad Street 25 years ago, and it probably cost a little bit more than that.
Yeah.
So that's, for handicap bathrooms, that's a pretty low price.
Well,
for any bathroom.
there's also closing costs, you know, that doesn't have anything to do with an ask. There's the EV system, for electrical vehicle charging station in the parking lot. That doesn't really have anything to do with the building. Those were things that we added on that we thought were important. The last piece I'll say is we didn't have an architect. We had an interior space planner and designer that we worked with, but if we were building this ourselves, we would have been layering on acquisition of the land, design costs for an architect. We worked as a team with some specialists that we brought in, but this is probably the most cost-effective way to develop a project that we've ever undertaken.
Mr. Chair, I was coming at this from a different angle, thinking it was a traditional bid for this project, and not an RFP the way it was done. And I'm very familiar with the bidding laws in Massachusetts. I don't have any other questions, and I'll be voting in support of this tonight.
Thank you. Councilor McCarthy.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, not being a member of the committee, I mean, obviously, Council Terrell touched on it a little bit earlier. It was, after the Jazz Festival last night, we ended up back at my house and we were talking about this meeting tonight and the whole process. And all day I've been thinking about this, and it's like, it's been a long process to get here. And I personally haven't seen the finished product. When they had the open house for us, I wasn't available, but I know my wife has been through, I know other people have been through, and they say how wonderful it is. I mean, I don't like the process we're going through right now. I know it's a need, and I understand that. But the other part, as I sit here and I reflect on the numbers, and as I listen to the discussion, there's a couple glaring things that over the last 6 or so years and all the votes that we've taken on this that really stick out in my mind is, one, the first RFP was for a senior center, but it was a part of a multi-use building. So we were basically going to be a condo within a building. So when you look at some of the things we're looking at on these ads, you're talking about the ads. If you own a condo in a building, you're not responsible for the exterior canopies because that would be part of the shell of the building. So when you look at the building when it's shelled, some of these costs would have been incurred in the overall cost of the other building that we were supposed to initially be in. We're not a condo, we're a standalone building. So on top of this, we're getting the land that we sit on and the building. And when you look at the roof upgrade, we were gonna be in a condo. So we're not gonna upgrade the roof. That'd be on the whole condo, that would be on the whole developer, the whole building. So now we're standalone and we're down the road, we're thinking, so some of these costs, you can just extrapolate them out and say, okay, these are some of the incurred costs that are gonna reflect on the fact that now we're a standalone building as opposed to a condo. And some of those costs, you just have to, I mean, whether you like them or not, they're just incurred costs. And you can just run through the list, and some of them are upgrades. And, you know, I can remember from day one when we took the vote on this, and there wasn't a kitchen in there, and I can't tell you how many people have gone to cooking classes or been down to the new building in the Point and the cooking classes they do down there, and the availability to have a kitchen that you can do cooking classes, it adds more to programming. The fact that we were able to, you know, get it in, that's another incurred cost. I mean, it wasn't in the baseline, and it was always a bone of contention since day one, 6 years ago. So I look at the costs, and I mean, yeah, I agree with Mike. There's, you know, some of them, yeah, maybe a little cheaper here, maybe. When I looked at this list the other day and I looked at them, we're getting 2 bathrooms for $20,000, I started laughing because there's no way after the fact with a slab on grade construction you could add those bathrooms. And that was a need when people were looking, after the place was starting to get shelled out, and they were looking at it and they said, we need bathrooms off the great room. And to add them then, that cost would be multiplied by, I can't even tell you what factor, after the fact to try to add those. So, I mean, these are, you know, I give, it was funny, I was talking to Senator Lovely recently about this because she was one of the ones that, you know, took these votes, and she was on one of the original design groups, and we were talking about some of this stuff, and she hadn't seen the list, and I was just and I was going off the top of my head running through some of the items, and she's like, yeah, those are some of the things we were looking at even back then, and that was, you know, 5-6 years ago when we first was like, we were in the condo looking at some of this stuff, never mind after the fact. So, I mean, I don't like the process of where we are, that we have to vote for it, you know, basically tonight, but I understand the need, and I understand that, you know, at the end of the day, every penny's worth it for the seniors in order to put them in a facility that's top-notch, state-of-the-art, and it's gonna be for the seniors, so I don't have a problem for it. Thank you.
Any other councilors wishing? Councilor Flynn.
I'd like to just say, I think this is one of the most important projects that we've done in a long time. Our seniors deserve it, veterans deserve it, and I'm glad, as the good at-large councilor said, it's an exciting time in the city and people have been reaching out. I was lucky enough to tour the building back in the winter, and the on-site supervisor was very excited, showing me a lot of the new technologies. I mean, this is really a top-notch building, and I'm very happy about it. I don't have a problem with the costs. I just wish in the future that we did have a heads up back at budget time. I would have appreciated that, just to know what's coming down the pipeline with, not an exact amount, but maybe just an estimate of what we're looking at now, so we didn't end up at the end of summer like this with our hands tied. But I do praise you, Mayor, for being here when we get this new center. It's long overdue, and I can't tell you how many people have been reaching out to me. I'm very, very excited, including the veterans with the new veterans office there. So thank you, and I do support this. Ross, thank you.
Councilor Fury?
Mayor, we had the opportunity last month to go visit Brook Street. Yourself, state rep, state senator, city councilors, many people, neighbors down there. Absolutely pristine, beautiful neighborhood. Locally, very, very concerned about redoing the neighborhood, putting on a new berm. Preventive maintenance. They're afraid of preventive maintenance. We kept saying along the way, we could have another big flood. They said, we haven't had a big flood in years. It's awfully hard to convince them, because you could actually golf Tiger Woods down in Brook Street. Now, to take that to the new Council on Aging Center, 100-year floods are taking place all too often, much more than a 100-year flood. We've gotten 3 inches of rain, 4 inches of rain lately. We haven't had a hurricane. This is the prime hurricane season. It's built right next to the North River Canal. Looks nice now. With all these additions and add-ons we're adding, has that building been designed, do you believe, with comfort that 100-year flood that's going to eventually happen anyway?
Yeah.
Could ruin all that we're putting into it? Are you concerned?
Before the answer, let the record reflect that Councilor Madore is also here now.
Thank you.
So the project went through the full permitting review process, both at the local level and the state level. It is on Phil Tidelands. It needed a Chapter 91 license. You may recall there was stone on there raising everything's up, and it's on pilings. That's all done to prevent issues with respect to flooding on that particular site. I think we've had a lot of water just as soon as the Sunday before last, and we've never seen the water it does affect Bridge Street further down by the Universal Steel site, but we've never seen the water affect this site, even in some of those worst storms that you've pointed out. So between the permitting reviews at the local and state level, both state DEP and our local Conservation Commission and engineers all had to review these projects. I feel like we've taken every precaution we can to address climate change. 50, 60 years from now, could something happen? I suspect there might be a lot more waterfront property in Salem, but we feel like we've done everything we can to ensure that going forward, for the life of this building, that we are anticipating that we're protecting it from the water. Mike, is there anything you'd like to add?
Councilor, I base everything I do on reality, and we had the storms back in March, I believe, April or March. And I don't know if I can put my finger on it, but I have a photo where there was water on the streets, and our building sat and as an island above everything, and it was out of harm's way. That was not a 100-year storm, but it showed that the work that was done, as the mayor was speaking, within everything, we were raised and we were protected.
During election years, my favorite spot to stand holding a sign for re-election. Thank God this is not election year.
I'm sure you
We'll be holding
stand
in
in
front of
Moody
our
Square.
Dunkin' Donuts.
Yep.
And be standing up. Just what? I'll shake. Well, lo and behold, standing there, you have to be like this. What? Holding a sign, Dunkin' Donuts. People crossing the street.
Yep.
Very dangerous.
Yep.
No lights there actually to press. Now, somewhere along the line, lights will have to come in. Where was the progress on that? Lights?
Yeah,
for all people
so,
walk to Council on Aging.
We'll be replacing the signals at that entire intersection. And then from Bridge to Flint, we've got streetscape improvements. That'll be more of a complete street model with an off-road bike path and walking path on both sides. Right now, DEP is holding that up a little bit as we're trying to get some final permits for that construction, but we're ready to go. We had a Mass Works grant to help improve much of that area, and you can see Flintan coming together. I mean, the whole idea is to knit together what's several former industrial sites into a neighborhood, create more walking opportunities, allow for neighborhood retail, and see, the corridor grow in that way. So we're hoping to get that under construction within spring of next year. We're just tussling around a few issues right now with DEP. But you might recall we were in last year, the prior council, looking at the bike lane and what was going to be approved, and the poles have come down, so there's more room. The lines have been buried. National Grid had a lot of work to do out there on this stretch right in front of our building. So it's going to be a much improved corridor when that project's done.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other questions from members of the council? Councilor Malley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, not being a member of the committee through you. Couple questions. So we haven't spent any money yet, right? We've got that 4.9 million that we've got the authorization for, but the money, does it exist anywhere?
Yeah, it was an authorization to bond, so when
Yeah.
we go to the closing, we'll exercise that bond. We'll probably do what's called a bond anticipation note, so we'll take the cash out when we go to the closing.
So why don't we just add this to the bond?
Because we really felt like these were items that were more finishes. We could, but honestly, if we have the funding to pay as you go, so to speak, the city-owned land and the stabilization fund, and we'll replenish it when we sell the building, the current building. That was our preferred way to finance it,
All right, I'm just thinking
as
that-
opposed to paying the interest over the 20-year life of the bond on that larger amount. We'll just keep the bond at 4.9.
So the anticipated one, I'm reading the letter.
Yep.
And maybe you can help me in the second to the last paragraph. The funds the city will receive from the sale of fiber optic will help offset the upgrade costs.
Correct.
So the upgrade costs, we're talking about the 700,000, right? They'll totally offset that,
Well,
right?
so some of those dollars we had anticipated into the cost of the center. So we have to bond for the full amount because we need to pay it out, 4.9. We'll probably do what's called a bond anticipation note. So it's a short-term borrowing, so we can get the cash, pay for the property. We'll sell Broad Street, right, at hopefully some point soon, and then we'll take those resources, and that way we can lower the cost of the bond, right? So we'll take those dollars, instead of maybe going out with 4.9, maybe we could go out with 3.6, right? That 1.3. So that will help offset if it's, let's hope it's 1.3 or higher. What we were anticipating was getting somewhere between $500,000 and $1 million. When we do our financial planning on what our long-term debt's gonna be, we anticipated, all right, 4.9, hopefully if we can buy down some of that debt when we sell the building, it won't quite be 4.9, it'll be less. So the good news is that less is even higher because the cost of the building's gone up in value in terms of its reuse capacity.
But the point is, it's all going towards the center in one way or another.
You got it, you got it.
Are they getting, is there all new technology and new furniture going in there?
Yep.
So, like, is everybody getting new computers and upgrades and all
I
that
don't
kind
know
of,
if
like, that's what
everybody is. A lot of the computers are actually, Mike.
Correct, yeah,
right?
the computers and the IT equipment are really the equipment that's going over, but that has been replaced, and I think Terry can comment on a little bit, but the product that is coming over is relatively new. Obviously, the system within the walls and things such as that are, something well beyond what we have at 5 Broad Street. The furniture that we're getting is all new. There are some miscellaneous file cabinets, things such as that will be coming along more for the storage room areas, but the FF&E overall is, I'm gonna call it 98% of what will be in the building will be new. And like I say, the IT equipment that is coming, the equipment itself, the screens, the monitors, the keyboards, that stuff has been relatively recently replaced at 5 Broad Street. And I know in talking to Matt Killen and Ollie over in the IT department, that anything that is outstanding, the idea is with this new building is to continue the growth of upgrading the technology.
I can speak to that, please. The only new equipment in terms of computers that I was aware of is that there will be some laptops for seniors' use in the cafe area. So the rest, I think, is most of the equipment just coming over.
There'll be a cart for us to do some computer training if we want to for seniors. But staff computers are actually not that old, so we'll be moving those over.
So, this might be a little off focus, but just out of curiosity, like, what's not that old? What's the city's replacement? I'm just curious, now that we're
Yeah,
talking about old versus
Phone
not that
systems within
old.
the last year.
Yeah.
Phone systems within the last
Oh,
year.
so everybody's gotten new computers in the last year? Is
No,
that
the
what-
phone
phone
system.
system.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Phone system.
I would say,
Oh,
looking
okay.
at the computers that exist at 5 Broad Street, and knowing what we have at the annex, at the annex, we've had our computers probably changed within the last couple of years, monitors, things like that.
Yeah.
Sporadically within the offices and the departments, But I would probably say they were on the same basis as we are, so I'd say within the last 2 years, but, again, not
not
having
bad.
worked in that department, I can't give you.
Yeah, Matt
exactly.
could provide a better answer because
Yeah,
he
no,
has
I
an
know,
idea.
yeah, it
But,
was just like, oh,
generally,
okay, like-
4 to 6 years, 3 to 5 years. Ideally, we don't like equipment that's older than that if we can help it.
Yeah.
But it's all subject to budgeting, and we've been putting a lot of money in hardware, which means some hardware, I mean conduit, lines, connecting things. So that doesn't always mean that we have as much to put in actual new computer purchases.
I
In this
will
case, we're moving over what they have and buying new stuff for the seniors.
Yeah.
I'll say
just
for the
hope-
record on the technology that I'm supposed to be at some point using those laptops to do some classes for some of the seniors over there. I was told by a certain Mrs. McCarthy that I'd be doing that.
Yep.
And I'm not allowed to say no.
So I'm just thinking, I'm hoping at some point in time when we get this high-speed internet, that the city will be able to negotiate with whoever that new provider or the new providers will be, to be able to, take advantage of that kind of stuff. And,
Amen.
And, hopefully at that time we'll get some new stuff. Mayor, I want to also applaud you for getting this far. It's certainly something. Yeah, we're almost there,
September
Yeah,
10th.
right. And I think you kind of got the message during our conversation that I wasn't thrilled with the process either. So I have to ask, I don't even know when this type of situation will come up again, but I'm sure that somewhere in the future, and maybe not so distant future, there will be a situation, a project where it's somewhat long-term like this, and that expenses will be, mounting as the project goes on. How can we avoid what happened here? I mean, I don't know, was it like, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but like, do you just like forget to put five, you know what I mean? Like,
I would
because
say-
you're so good. Maybe like you set your own bar so high that our expectations are high. I'm
Yeah,
like, she
that's
did
what it is.
what?
Yeah.
I'll go with that.
So I think that this was a unique project for us too. So normally, and this is the first time I can ever recall us ever coming in and sort of saying to you guys, we really need to get this going. And we could have waited till September if we weren't trying to close by the end of this month.
Yeah.
And frankly, we've got all these gyrations that go with moving and cutting over, and we're trying to schedule those so we can get people to doctor's appointments and do all those things. Otherwise, we could have came in September, but it wouldn't have changed the fact that, yeah, we had a bunch of stuff that, were expected that weren't incorporated into the final budget. And I think this is a unique project because we normally would come in, ask for a bond, and run a project, the schools. We don't come back in and ask you for money. It's like, that's the budget, stay within it, expedite it. This is different. We had a project that was approved 5 years ago or longer at this point that we weren't running. It's not our contractor, it's not our designer. They owe us a box. We said we want a better box, and through a committee identified a series of better box issues. And then there were some in the field changes around it. Somebody went for a tour, this needed to get changed, or it didn't look that, when you see it, it looks a little different, and there were some adjustments that needed to be made in the field. That's unusual. That would normally be in a process that we'd already have a budget squared away. We'd be I can't even sign a contract with a contractor or a designer till we have all the funding squared away and worked out. This was different. It's not our contractor. I will say, it's a very good contractor who has taken like pride and ownership of this building, that many of these prices he's given us, I think, are like costs. Like, I want this to work out well too. I want those harvested lights to create more light in the great room. So we did have somebody who I think was conscientious, and it wasn't our contractor or our designer. So this was a little bit of a quirky process for us too. So I don't think there'll ever be a situation like this in the future, to be quite honest, unless we're doing public-private partnerships more often. And if we were, we'll have to anticipate, like, okay, let's do the backward planning. When do we anticipate being finishing up with a sort of closing, and what are all the other additional costs that we have? And we have a big in-house team that was doing this. There are some communities that might have hired a project management firm or hired their own clerk of the works to, review what the contractor is doing. We had Mike, who was doing a lot of that work, who was already on staff, so it wasn't an added cost to us. So it really is a bit of a hybrid, unique situation that I don't see arising in the future, but if it does, we'll be a little bit better prepared.
So can I just go back to the stabilization fund piece
Yeah.
again? All right, so we've got X in the stabilization fund, we're gonna take Y out of it, then we'll get the money, we're gonna put the money back in there.
Yep.
And the stabilization fund is gonna be flush.
Yep.
Where it was
We add to the
before.
stabilization fund every year because we take a percentage of free cash that
Right.
goes back in there. So we'll be replenishing it this fall regardless. But ideally, we'll let this building sell and, make sure we take out whatever we just took out, put it back in.
Right, and so this action is not going to prevent us from having that pot of money to reduce the tax rate that we use every
Oh, no.
place.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
All right, I just want to
Yeah, no,
make
no,
sure
no. Yeah,
it's,
not
people
completely
know it's
unrelated.
not.
Yep.
Yeah.
We rarely touch the stabilization.
Right, I know. Yeah.
We've done it for, we like building that one up.
Yeah, we definitely do.
But I don't want to bond for a long time. That doesn't, and it takes 2 passages, and now you're talking about adding a 20-year time span. The ban gives us the flexibility because the ban will be in place probably for a year. And then we'll lump a bunch of things together that we go out to bond, so you save cost on that. And we'll either reduce the rate, we'll come back in and sort of put some money back in the stabilization, and then reduce the total amount. When we go out to bond, just because it's 4.9, that's always an up to authorization.
Yeah.
We'll end up reducing that amount.
So the way the numbers are going, it's not like a year from now, the rates are gonna like shoot up and,
Generally not.
yeah.
If we thought so, we'd go out for the bond sooner, but
Okay.
you don't want to just go out for one thing. You
Right,
generally
right.
want to lump a bunch of things together
Right.
because it's there's bond fees. It's not inexpensive to bond in and of itself. So
Yeah.
communities generally put a bunch of items together at the same time.
Okay, thank you.
So I have one follow-up question, I guess, and then I know we have Teasy here, and she wanted to ask stuff, so I'll let the public have a shot. We talked about the public-private partnership. When's the next private part of that going to get started? Now that our building's done.
Yeah, absolutely. We hope sooner rather than later. I know the developer had talked about using some of these same contracting teams to do the site work, but I don't have a hard schedule for you right now. I mean, it's a strong housing market. Hello, you
Yeah, the sooner
want to
he builds
take
it, the
advantage of
better.
that. And, I would also say that we're hoping some of the new tax revenue from that commercial project will offset the cost of this bonding that we just talked about. So we want to see it happen too. So I will try and get a more firm timeline from the developer.
Okay.
But it's fully permitted, ready to go. Like, there's nothing preventing it in terms of external issues.
Okay. Councilor Dibley?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Seeing that we're talking about the old building, I have a question about the old building and a question about the new one. I'll start with the new one.
All right.
On here, you have a line item for $28,500 for infrastructure for future solar roof panels. About 12 years ago, I put $30,000 worth of solar panels, 28 panels on my roof, and I'm told that the cost has come roughly in half. So it's a lot less money than it was. Well, I bought them when I was at the high point, the expensive point. And then it came down from there. I don't know how much it's come down. I don't know what the price is today. But if we can put solar panels up there, especially where the city council passed a memorandum to reduce our carbon footprint on any public projects that we have, we should take a look at it and see. So I'm wondering if you'd be kind enough to get pricing on what it would cost for the solar panels for our new building, if you don't already know it. And maybe if it's low enough, we can pay for a portion of it or all of it out of the $75,000 if we don't use that up on other things.
Sure. I know we're getting prices for it. It's definitely our anticipation is to put solar on the roof. That's why we got it structured. This contractor they didn't want anything to do with it, and it's an extra. So we will. I'll get you that information. We have a bunch of data on it already.
Well, we definitely want to hire a solar panel company, not a general contractor.
You got it.
What does the $28,500 under roof infrastructure for future solar PV get us? What is that?
I thought it was additional ballasts and support systems so they can take
Beef up the framing.
Thank you. Yep.
More load-bearing capacity?
Yeah, because you have to, it's a flat roof, you have to cover the snow load plus the load of the
Yep.
solar
Yes.
panels.
I'd be in favor of putting up the solar panels sooner than later. I
We
have
don't own the
not.
building yet. You can't put them up till we own
No.
it.
Well, we can bid it and be ready for it.
Yeah. Yep.
rather put it up, I have not had an electric bill in almost 3 years on my house.
Yeah.
So it's a beautiful thing.
Mine was $13 last month at my house. I was quite happy.
It's about time you got solar panels on your roof, Mayor.
A lot of the time, there's grants from the state for doing municipal buildings
exactly.
and
And
stuff, so.
Yep.
We are
Mr.
just
Chair.
wrapping up 2 solar projects at Bentley and Witchcraft right now. In addition to the Witchcraft, they both need a little bit of roof work, so we have been
remember
aggressive
paying
on the
for it.
solar front, for sure.
We should be planning the second, third, and fourth solar panel projects as well, and just keep it going, because it works. My question on the existing 5 Broad Street building, I am very excited that you're being proactive in putting it out to bid, and hopefully we get a nice project that works is compatible with the neighborhood.
Yep.
Whatever it be. It's not my ward, but I know the building inside and out. It's a beautiful building.
Really is.
We put structural steel, not me personally, but I supervise the work. We put structural steel to support the giant cupola years ago to preserve the building, and hopefully we preserve it nice. But with regard to the RFP that's out for sale of the building now, I'm not sure if it's an RFP or if it's just
It's RFP.
It's an RFP, okay. And then while that's going forward, we're gonna get prices back, but we also have a request from you for a overlay zone for the Archdiocese properties and 5 Broad Street.
Yeah.
And we're putting one before the other. We don't have it resolved yet, so we're gonna sell it, and then we have an overlay zone. What are we doing?
Yeah, so the RFP is out, and it does highlight the fact that the city will work with you to identify reuse options that may not be allowed under current zoning. And by that, we mean this overlay zone that we hope is approved so that something else could happen on that site. We did a feasibility study several years ago when we were anticipating not staying in Broad Street that identified housing as the best choice. Neighbors at that time identified housing as something they'd prefer to see in that site. And I believe it was somewhere between 14 and 19 units, something like that. That was sort of the sweet spot based on the layout of the building that, at that point, the feasibility study indicated could go in that site. The RFP will go out. The SRA is sort of managing the process because they've had such experience managing jails and other reuse initiatives. They'll review the proposals. They will work to identify a potential developer. That developer will then need to go get permits, so the property won't actually be sold for a good number of months after a developer is selected, because any developer slash owner looking to redevelop that site is going to want to go through their permitting process before a sale or a closing will take place. So hopefully by that time, the council will have acted on the proposed zoning overlay that will allow not only for that building, but those other 2 historic school buildings that the church is owned to be redeveloped as well.
Does the RFP say that we're working on this?
Yeah.
And talks about the details of what this overlay zone
Yep.
might be?
It identifies the fact that the city will work with you to accommodate additional housing beyond what's allowed under the current zone, something like that. The RFP is available online, but I can get you a copy of it. And certainly it anticipates, there's strong interest, as you can imagine, the building close to the downtown historic property. Schools typically lend themselves for reuses. So we have definitely spread the word that you don't need to stay in an R1 or R2 use, obviously, for this particular building.
Yeah, I just think it's odd that we have something being proposed for this one property that is not defined yet totally, and it's not passed yet, but we're selling the property.
Well, as I said,
But
it
I'm in
won't.
favor of selling the property. It's
Yeah,
just-
and
we got a little gray area.
the sale is a long-term process. So if there's somebody who's going to come in and make a proposal, there'll be several proposals we anticipate. The SRA will narrow it down and make a recommendation for who to go with. They are not going to, there's no sale for several months after that in terms of them going to get their permitting. Hopefully by that time, it's going to align with the work that the council has. If we waited for the council to act, we'd be several months behind even soliciting interest in that particular building, and we didn't think that made any sense given the fact that buildings that are unoccupied, even when the heat's on and the water's working, they continue to decay, and we'd like to hopefully assume the council will act quickly and we can move forward in an expeditious manner. But the actual sale is months away.
Yes, but the bid with the dollar amount is soon.
Correct. You're going to have to assume, every bidder is going to have to assume that whatever they do in that building, the city is going to work with them. There's a feasibility study that lays out, it's only so many square footage, how many units can you put in? There's bonus points for greater affordability and things of that amount. And I think any redeveloper that, based on the bid documents or the RFP documents, understands the city is working to put in place additional mechanisms to enable you to redevelop the site for housing, for multiple housing units.
I'll just note to hopefully bring this part of it to a close that the site has already been declared surplus. We did that back in 2013 in the process. So, they can go into this whole listing RFP process, get their bids, and anybody who gets into it knows that right now there's a whole process going along. It's going to determine what that final use can be, and by the time I think they have made it to the point of RFPs, we will hopefully be through the process of having whatever our definition for that overlay zone would be and gotten to that point. And if we haven't, then that's going to affect the bid process most likely. So it's going to depend on us a little bit at that point in time. If there are not any other questions, I'd like to give TC a chance to come up. You want to speak on this? So.
Good evening,
As
T.C.
always,
Riley Goggin, 9
Thank you.
Mysterious Street. A number of years ago, I sat in this same room when the senior center that was going to be built, we thought, because I was on the senior site committee, down the Willows, was changed. And the present one that you're talking about now was put in place. And the one thing I want to say to the mayor is that you definitely have a way with words, and you have a way with numbers, and you have accomplished what you wanted to set out to do. But I would like to know where the amount of money, $4.9 million, I think it's 4.994, is what they're really and truly talking about. How in all of this time, even a loaf of bread has gone up, milk has gone up, taxes have gone up. But how did it stay the same? I would like to trace it back, and I'd like to have coffee with the mayor and find out how the negotiations went on that no added cost was put to this building. How did they possibly do it? And ones that I would like you to negotiate with is the taxpayers of the city of Salem, where we could be told that taxes are in place and they will not go up. Sewerage will not go up. There must be someone, and I'm hoping you, the councilors, will find out how that happened. Now, tonight I came here, I told my friends I was coming, and they said, don't waste your time. The councilors are going to do exactly what Mayor Kim Driscoll wants. Now, I don't know where they'd get an idea like that, but that's the idea that they have outside of this room. But right now, I know that you, the council, you don't want to disappoint people. You know that this $700,000, $750,000 actually, is going to have to be appropriated. And you're going to vote exactly as you have right down the line. The one time that I thought that maybe the council was not going to do exactly what everyone else thought they would do. But it's not going to be tonight. So what I'd like to say to each and every one of you is, there are times that if you as a council would stick together very closely, maybe we would have things differently in this city. But the amount of money that is being spent here tonight, I have no idea what it's for. I know that there's agenda. I would hope on this agenda of the $700,000 that has been added one thing that I even spoke to Mike, who was the clerk of the works over there at the new Community Life Center, was a biking gas stove. Yes, the seniors wanted a biking gas stove. And I was told that it would not be possible to bring in the gas to the building. Then I found out they have a gas fireplace. And then someone else told me that they are going to actually heat the building with gas. So, if you don't have on that agenda, with $700,000 you're going to appropriate tonight, could you please add a biking gas stove so the seniors can have cooking lessons. And so we could also probably bring in caterers if we decide we want to use the building as a community life center and do a lot of functions there and help pay for the building. That's all I have to say, and thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank
And
you.
congratulations, Mayor.
I'll ask if Mike or anybody can answer the question about what we have for a stove in the kitchen, since we have a full kitchen.
The stove presently is an electric is an electric stove. Early on in this process, one thing that a gas stove does add to is it requires exhaust, which would have required elimination and reduction in program space on the upper floors. From the beginning, there was an electric stove always in this building. That was directive that, from my initial injection into this project, it was electric. It is electric today. The equipment that will be in this kitchen is all first-class commercial equipment. Larry Ramden, our former health department, reviewed the products with me, and everything that is in this kitchen, including the electric stove, is a commercial kitchen, which does not impede in any way cooking classes or anything like that. So that's what I can give to the council as an answer. Councilor Milo?
Thank you, Councilor Milo.
Just a follow-up question, not regarding the stove, but there's a flagpole, right?
There is a flagpole that will be
Okay.
going in tomorrow, along with the reception desk, as well as the servitory around the kitchen area. So tomorrow is a big day down there. And the flagpole will be solar powered, so the flag will not need to be taken down unless there is some type of weather condition.
Thank you. Any other questions for members of the committee or members of the council? If not, I'd ask for a motion.
Motion to approve, please.
Councilor Fury moves to approve Council Order 524. Seconded by Councilor Dibble. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor? Opposed? So moved. And then we have the one other matter, which I think requires probably no discussion because it's directly tied into everything we just said, which is Council Order number 525. The order, the sum of $70,000 is hereby appropriated within the sale of city property account to be expended for the upgrades to the Mayor Jean Levesque Community Life Center. Any discussion on that, or do I, which is part of the sum total, or do I see a motion on that one? Councilor Dibble.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay. Councilor Dibble moves approval of Council Order 525, second by Councilor Fury. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor? Opposed? So moved. I write slow, I apologize. And seeing anything else, Councilor Fury?
Motion to adjourn the subcommittee meeting.
Councilor Fury moves that we adjourn the subcommittee meeting. All those in favor? Opposed? We are adjourned.